put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place.
Good morning, viewers. It is 7:39 a.m. and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. On set with us this morning, we are chatting women and finance in the home. And we're speaking with Cherise Mcknight, financial advisor. Morning, and welcome to you.
Good morning.
So as we get this conversation started this morning, I mean, I am already familiar, but tell us, who is Cherise Mcknight?
Cherise, if I have to describe myself, I start with wife, mother, love finance. I've been in finance for years, since 2002.
Right.
I've been in finance. I've been in different aspects of finance from beginning to now where I'm actually giving advice with finance. It's been a roller coaster. I've been in every aspect. I've experienced it all. I've experienced the debt. I've experienced surplus. I've experienced the balancing off where my finances is concerned. I've experienced the intermittent costs that may come, building, loans, repayment of loans. I've seen it on both sides, from experiencing it personally as well as doing it for other persons, because in my past, I would have been a loan officer at an institution. So giving loans and having one of my own is an experience as well. Credit,
So
everybody knows.
Interesting enough, and I like the direction that you're going, because we're speaking to finance in the home.
Yeah.
And I want to start off on the premise of how important is it for us to really try to ensure that that balance exists at home? Because for many of us, you know, sometimes you have both parents at home. One that really doesn't come down to that pen and paper kind of determination as to how things will go, but they seem to find a way. Sometimes you don't come down to that pen and paper, you don't find a way at all until you get to the extremes, and then you have some that I just pay all the bills, and whoever left, I find a way to live on that, even if it means I ain't taking care of myself. So let's start from there in terms of that guidance where you may have the two-parent home versus the one-parent home when you're speaking to managing finances.
Well, to be very honest, most persons would have different views, but for me, especially from looking at assessing persons where their finances are concerned, whether you're single or you're not, is almost the same bucket we're coming from, right? When it comes to the home, in the past, it was more the female at home. So as much as she was not bringing in the income, she was the one who was assisting the male in managing his income. And now where we have both female and male bringing in the income, you also look at how the finances would be affected with the time. Because when you're not home, you have to pay somebody to be home. And if you can't afford to pay somebody to be home, then the child is at home creating an expense of its own. So there are different challenges. I cannot say that I have experienced single parenting before, but I've experienced being at home on my own and channeling it through. There were a lot of choices I had to make with my children. So there were times that my husband had to make a choice to be somewhere else and I'm somewhere else. And we had the children. So you still had a of what single parenting is. But when it comes down to the finances, every decision you make actually affects your finance. A lot of people don't see it, but they experience it in the back end. So yes, bills are very important. So that is what maintains the basic necessities of the home. So in business, you would call it overhead cost. A businessman would not ignore his overhead costs. It's the same way in the home, if you want to look at it as a financial cap, you would say that is your main business. Your business is to maintain you and your children and your spouse and everything else. You have maintenance. If you don't have the home of your own, you have rent. These are things that the basic things that you need to have to supply yourself as well as those who depend on you. Being joint, you have an up to some sort once both parties communicate and are in agreement. where we both contribute, because there are some who, even though there are two parties, there's only one person
Still
contributing
maintaining the
to
home.
be realistic. So you also have to have that form of communication and understanding. If you are a single parent, you now have to have that communication with someone who's not even an adult, because it has to have some form of understanding there as well. So
So you do advise that you in terms of your children, that they should have an understanding of what's happening in the household.
yes,
Because you know
finance,
we came from a time where your parents dealt with your financial business as that's my stress and my
yeah,
struggle. Your responsibility is just to go to school, get an education, and focus
and
and do your
that is
best.
correct.
What is your recommendations? You know, as a
My
financial advisor now
recommendation,
in
especially
2023.
being a mommy, I allow my son to make decisions. The younger one, not so much, but the older one, I put him in a position to know. When we go to school, yes, we go to school, we go to university, we even go as far as doctorate and you get your finance degree. But having the degree doesn't know you know what to do. Having the degree just gives you the opportunity to talk. But if it is that we, as parents, we allow our children to understand the nitty-gritties. Yes, you may not have to tell them, oh God, I owe $1 million here or whatever be the case, but they are owings. Allow them to understand that. Allow them to understand that, hey, when you want that original Jordans, it's taking away something from the phone bill. It's taking away something from the light bill. When you want that Apple iPhone, it's taking away. What helps me? You could do the chores home. That would alleviate me having to do it. And then now I can spend more time thinking about the amount of money that comes in. It would alleviate me having to cut across my one-on-one time with you to go out to get another income. Because I've been there where I had to say, okay, I need to do something on the side, which means I have to avoid my kids a little bit more. And then they now become the responsibility of a babysitter, which is an added cost to me. So all of that is part of financial planning. So I do have those conversations with my children, and I do encourage anybody to have those conversations with my children. And I allow them, when I have the opportunity to, I allow them to make certain financial decisions on their life and let them know, hey, when you make this choice, remember whatever result this choice brings, you have to bear that cost. So yeah.
So one of the areas, you know, I definitely want to speak to is looking at the minimum wage and those average, those workers, daily rated and so on, that may not necessarily be on the higher end. But I don't know, by some stretch of the imagination, and even pensioners, grandparents, and so on. And you know, I have my very own experiences coming from very humble beginnings. They seem to find ways to have managed resources, and years later you wonder, but Granny, yeah, you know,
How you
how
manage
how
it?
you were able to do that? And you know, I feel like compared to now, younger persons, middle age, etc., in areas and so on that may not be high income or average earning, finding it extremely challenging to be able to. What would be your advice in terms of, you know, finding some ways that they can still, even out of little,
To get a
still
lot.
find something to get a lot or to save in some way, form, or fashion?
Well, over the years, I noticed there are two types of people in everybody. You and I, there's a type for us. So either I'm a spender or I'm a buyer, right? So the spender is the one that would go out and um, I just have to get it because I'm convincing myself why I need to buy this product, even though it's not a need. It's not something that I really want. But, it's always good to have it. And then you have the buyer. I'm only going for this phone. I needed to do this particular service. I don't need all the other bells and whistles, so that's all I need it for. So you have the different persons, and the characteristic of each person brings out a difference in their savings. So you would realize a buyer, regardless of their income, it could be $1,500 a month. When you check their savings, they have a savings. And then you would have the spender, when you check their savings, they don't have any.
You're going from month to month.
So even though yes, right now,
And in some
the
case,
minimum
fortnight to
wage,
fortnight, paycheck to
yeah,
paycheck.
the minimum wage is, I wouldn't even comment on the minimum wage. And yes, we know there are persons who are working for less than what I may even consider a good monthly income to survive off of. But if you look at it out of 10, you may find like 3 of them that actually have a savings bigger than mine. And you would wonder, okay, well, how did you go about it? I did a project with my children, and it was a form of allowing my son to understand the value of money and how it multiplies. So, with the 7-year-old, I have a 12 and a 7-year-old. The 7-year-old, he's supposed to save 25 cents every day. Regardless of what you do, figure out 25 cents. My older son, I started him with 25 cents. And I said, every week, you double whatever you did the week before. So if you did 25 cents this week, next week we're doing 50 cents every day. The next week you're doing $1 every day until eventually you reach to a lucrative amount. And when he saw at the end of a 6-month period how much money he had, he's like, Mommy, I'm rich. I said, yeah. So now you know, being a Christian, 10% goes back to God. So you need to give your dues where that is concerned. And then 10% needs to go to you. And I say the rest, that is for further down the road. Because you don't have no bills. Because I have your back where that is concerned. But you need to cater for the days when I am not around. And that is what I encourage persons to teach their children now. Because if we don't allow ourselves to put our children in a knowledge base where spending and managing their money is, Juliana, it's problems.
Correct, correct. Being able to get the
Yeah.
basics and know how to make it work for you. Very quickly, because we've got to close just out of time.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to touch on, as well as a financial advisor, people sometimes uh, get consumed and are not as familiar with the options. Their banks, their credit unions, their insurance, various agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you suggest or direct options that persons should be able to explore? Because people think make the mix up to think the money that goes into my standard savings account that makes little to nothing is an investment.
No, it's not.
Yes. So just
No,
some
it's not.
quick guidance on that. And I often have to explain to person, yes, banks actually have investments tools,
Yes.
and it's not your savings account.
There are
If you
investment
could touch on
tools.
that
So
very
you
quickly.
have like your mutual funds. You would have with the credit union, it would be the shares. Even credit unions are now going into other aspects of different products. You would have unit trust, which also is a good place to save. With the insurances, you're looking at your endowments, even certain aspects of your life insurance you could use as a form of investment. If your appetite is big, you're looking at going into stocks, different types of stocks. Bonds, when the government gives out bonds, those are things that you can invest into. But all of these things takes a planning. Unless you have the money ready hand, you would have to plan your way to get to those points.
Contact information for persons who are interested in having a further conversation with you, because you're sounding like you're in my kind of situation, mother, working.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I enjoy all my aspects of me. So to contact me, 7920915. You would get me. If you don't, if you leave a message, you'll get a response.
Certainly. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining us here on set. Cherise
Nice having
Mcknight,
you.
financial advisor. And, I love these kinds of conversations. It puts you into a very realistic perspective. We may not have much, but we've got much to do, and therefore
That
we
is
have to
true.
find ways in order to make things work for us legally. All right, in terms of moving forward and moving ahead. Yes, and there are persons in similar circumstances. No, financial advisors are not necessarily billionaires under the circumstances, so they're here to help you through circumstances that even you may be going through. So feel free to connect, definitely. Thank you so much for your continued love and support, those of you joining us via TV, those listening in on the radio, and those of you online in the mix this morning. Quick shout outs: Eric Powder, Travis Moses, Julia Brown, Maximilian on the live, June, Sharon Mills, Auntie Dora on the live this morning, Marilyn Spence, Joe Field, QQ Melville, Lisa James. Good morning to each and every one of you. And we want to remind you, all of you out there this morning, that this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.